Today on Tri-Crow Studios, we do a comparison between the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s and the Gibson SG Standard. So before we get into everything, it's very important to me that you understand that there's no YouTube video out there that's actually going to properly convey to you how a guitar feels in your hands or how you might bond with a guitar. So what I like to do for YouTube videos personally, I like to use them to kind of broaden my knowledge and information, gain a little bit of different perspective on a guitar, and generally gain a little more excitement over a potential purchase. So don't let a goofball like me tell you what to buy. So I do have 5 sound samples today, first of which is clean, then I move on to Breakup, and then I like to do what I like to call Swampy rock, and then a little bit of increased gain, higher gain, rock tone, and then because it's this channel, a full-on metal tone. right, there you go. There are the sound samples for the comparison between the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s and the Gibson SG Standard. So I do want to go over very quickly some of the specs. So pickup wise, we have the 61R and 61T, which I believe are now called the 60s burst buckers in the Les Paul Standard 60s. And then we have the 490R and 490T in the SG Standard. The Les Paul Standard 60s is a non-weight relieved Les Paul, so that is a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top on top of it. And then the SG Standard here is a carved slab of mahogany. There's definitely quite a bit of girth difference here in the bodies. Both guitars feature a mahogany set neck and Grover Rotomatic tuners. Both guitars have the inlaid Gibson logo, with the SG having the, I think it's called the holly leaves, inlaid onto the headstock, whereas the Les Paul model is silkscreened on the headstock, and they also have Graphtec nuts. And for bridges, the Standard 60s has the ABR1, whereas the SG Standard has the Nashville bridge. And of course, the Standard 60s here being part of the original collection, it is hand-wired with orange drop capacitors, whereas the SG Standard being part of the modern collection, it has a PCB board. So some people do look down on the PCB boards. I prefer my guitars to be hand-wired or hand-soldered, but I don't really think I care about it that much. The PCB is definitely a time saver and a money saver, but it doesn't make your guitar a computer. I know there's some people out there that get really confused over that. And finally, the Standard 60s has the 60s neck profile, which is very similar, extremely similar to a slim taper neck, whereas the SG Standard here has the rounded profile, which is definitely a little thicker. Of course, I should mention both guitars have a gloss nitro finish. The Standard 60s comes with a hard shell case, whereas the SG Standard comes with a padded case. But honestly, that padded case is super, super thick and very, very, very padded, and will definitely protect your guitar very well. All right, so in this part of the video, I do want to go over each guitar individually, just to give a little bit of perspective on a little bit of feel and stuff like that, and some of the features. So taking a look at the Les Paul Standard 60s here, this is a fairly well balanced guitar, both seated and standing up. While you're seated, it kind of centers itself to your body, so when you're reaching for that higher access on the frets, it's kind of in the middle of your body. You're not reaching out or doing anything like that. There's also no weird bumps or anything like that that stop you from resting your arm somewhat comfortably. Like an Explorer, you don't have to put it in a classic seated position like that, like a Flying V or anything like that. The toggle switch is in the upper location on the guitar. So I find that when I'm playing leads, it is rather easy to kind of flick things up. I end up doing it with my thumb all the time. So if you're going from the bridge to the neck, very easy to do. However, I do have to say, if you're going from the bridge, neck, and then to the middle, just give yourself a little bit of practice. As far as access to the upper frets here, you can definitely get to the 22nd fret fairly comfortably. However, I do have to say you have to move your hand this way a little bit. If you're one of those players that likes to kind of have your thumb grip the other side while you're doing your bends and stuff like that, this is a single cutaway guitar, so this is the cut portion, this is the non-cut portion. You can't really get your thumb over that non-cut portion. And as far as weight, again, this is a non-weight relieved Les Paul. So if you're going from the SG to this guitar, you'll definitely notice the weight difference. You can also feel it in your legs, the thickness of the guitar as well. It's definitely not uncomfortable, at least to myself, as I do like non-weight relieved heavy Les Pauls. I don't know, I think I feel things a little more, and I like the overall tone. Now, taking a look at the SG Standard, you'll notice that I'm somewhat holding the guitar. Here's why. Basically, the balance is more towards the neck and the headstock on this type of guitar. So you'll always hear about the neck dive when you're standing up with a strap. I've always found that for any guitar that I have, if I have a good leather strap, that just kind of secures things a lot better than a nylon strap, and it does remedy some of the issues with neck dive. There's also nothing that's kind of protruding here like an Explorer. I don't have to put it in the classic position when I'm seated like a Flying V or anything like that. It's a fairly comfortable guitar to play while you're seated. The toggle switch is on the lower portion of the body now, which is nice if you are a player that uses the tone and volumes a lot. So if you're going to be reaching and doing those sort of things, the toggle switch is in the same location as opposed to being on the top. And I don't find that it's that uncomfortable to do your switching. Sometimes I find it a little easier to do so, kind of moving things with your pinky or even with like the middle finger or anything like that. It is sort of natural to move down there, but if you're going from an SG to a Les Paul or a Les Paul to an SG, kind of seems a little odd for a little bit. And as far as upper fret access here, you have all of the upper fret access that you could possibly want. You can even put your thumb around here when you're doing your bends if you're that kind of a player. That's because this is a double cutaway guitar. And the way that the horns are kind of sectioned here, it definitely gives you all of that access and a little more. And again, as far as weight, this is definitely a very lightweight guitar as it is a thinner body. And if you're going from a Les Paul to an SG, you'll definitely notice things, especially since things are kind of shifted forward here. So with the Les Paul, it seemed like where I was doing my bends was about here. Well, now where I'm doing my bends is here. There's about that much of a difference. But because everything's kind of shifted that way because of the way that the body is, it can be a little awkward at first, but you might find that a little different going from an SG to a Les Paul as well. So there's that. Anyway, that is all I have to say. That's all I want to say about the comparison here between the standard 60s and the SG standard. If you want different comparison showing the standard 60s against the SG standard 61, take a look. I've already made that video, yeah, you can take a look at that and any of my other comparisons. Anyway, thanks for watching.